Episode 4 The Scourge of Morden. Every inch of Juno's body was pain. It was a miracle she had slept at all. The room was unfamiliar, more rustic than the usual fare. The walls panelled with worn wood and lit with rudimentary electric lamps. The window was open to allow the gentle sound of city activity to trickle in with the morning sun. A teenage girl stood over her, big-eyed and homely. Her smile was almost unnaturally enthusiastic. "You're awake," she said. "Can you move?" Juno tried. Every limb felt like it had been beaten with a baseball bat for hours. "Kinda," she grunted. "How'd I get here?" "You climb," said the girl, a trace of awe in her voice. "One of our men found you on the cliff face, passed out from exhaustion. You don't get many visitors in Morden unless they come seeking sanctuary from Matron's Gestapo. They usually bring friends and equipment. They don't brave the terrain barehanded like you." Morden. The name jogged Juno's very memory. A hippie mountain colony, she heard it called. Miles of steep cliffs and raging rivers between it and the nearest government office, too isolated for Matron to bother enforcing her laws. And so it had become a self-maintaining sanctuary for thousands of people willing to adopt the local religion. The healers were the pillars of modern politics and supposedly had supernatural powers. She thought of countless children in Glimmerbell at the bottom of the mountains, pale and trembling, cocking their lungs up one bloody piece at a time. She somehow found the strength to sit up in bed. She looked at Stella again and found her still smiling like a customer service rep. "My name is Stella," said the girl. "You'll find your clothes by the bed. I washed them for you. If you feel well enough to walk, you should get dressed and join us." Juno stopped her. She began to walk out. "Join you for what?" The smile somehow broadened even further. "For the morning sermon, of course." Houses clustered together like lemmings along a winding network of cliffs. One good earthquake could send the entirety of Morden crashing into the ocean hundreds of feet below. It was trapped in a time warp of some kind. The buildings were cobbled together with stones and sheet metal, and powered by turbine yards visible further up the mountain. The ozone generators were highly sophisticated, protecting the rustic neighborhoods from the shearing eye of the sun. Juno was reminded of an old-world monastery perched atop a plateau, only accessible by basket elevators, which the people of Morden also frequently employed to get around. She tried not to look down as she and Stella got into one and were hoisted shakily to the upper levels of the city. "I saw your tattoos," chirped Stella. "You were in the armed forces during the Jotunheim conflict." Juno nodded. The girl's dreamy eyes were creeping her out. "I've never been outside of Morden," said Stella. "Born and raised here, I always dreamt about leaving someday and seeing what the rest of the world has to offer. But I'd be lost without the White Lady's guidance." They reached the upper cliffs, and Juno couldn't wait to get far away from the rickety basket lip. The upper and lower city were like night and day. Here there were many towering structures of milky white brick. The snowfall made it all seem like a neighborhood in some quiet corner of heaven. This was spoiled by the armed MPs patrolling the streets, some of which gave Juno suspicious looks as she passed. She stopped to stare at the marble statue of what appeared to be the Grim Reaper, but female and without the sight. The demonic figure stared down at Juno with empty eye sockets. A cold wind suddenly made her shiver. "You like the White Lady," said Stella, staring admirably at the statue. "She's not as scary as she looks. She adopts the death persona to help us accept our own mortality, that we may enjoy life rather than waste worrying about the inevitable." Several doors up the street, a young man in a shoddy tunic was harassing one of the resident priestesses, identified by their extravagant blue robes. His eyes wild with fear, he was drawing a crowd, and the priestess kept begging him to leave her alone. "Please, don't let it happen," he shrieked. "I haven't sinned. There's been a mistake. You have to help me." The priestess was shouting for the police now. The man tackled her to the ground, cursing her name and demanding her help. There were at least a dozen male MPs on the street watching the incident. none of them lifted a finger to stop him. Some of them chuckled or shook their hands with disgust. Juno rapidly approached the scuffle and easily pulled the scrawny man off of the priestess, tossing him into the snow. "What's the trouble here?" said Juno, ignoring the shocked, borderline offended looks the MPs and pedestrians were giving her. An outsider interfering with modern business. The young man began to weep. "You're the outsider they brought in from the blizzard," he said, crawling towards her. "They quarantined you when you arrived. Morden is your home now. You'll die here just like all the rest of us." Now one of the MPs interfered, rushing up and kicking the young man onto his side. "Keep your blasphemous trap shut, Errol." "Please," he coughed. "Please save us. Kill that evil bitch and release us." Another kick. "Blasphemy!" Juno shoved the soldier away before he could kick again. He got the point. "Please," wheezed Errol, his voice shrinking into a tiny squeak. Juno knelt by him and cooed. "Calm down. I won't let them hurt." The young man splayed on his back and began to shudder and tremble. His eyes rolled into the back of his head, and white foam oozed from his mouth. He shook violently as if he were being electrocuted, banging his head against the icy ground. 15 seconds later, he stopped moving. Juno checked his vitals and found to her horror that he was as dead as a stone. She slowly looked up at Stella and the other pedestrians gathering around the body. Their heads hung in prayer. "What the fuck is this?" said Juno. "Without the White Lady's blessing," said Stella, "sinners perish." There was a long line to enter the towering white cathedral for the morning sermon. As Juno neared the door, she realized why. White-suited doctors were administering injections to everyone who entered. "So glad you could join us," said a pudgy doctor when Juno reached the doors. "Your arm, please." "What for?" said Juno. It was a simple question, and yet it brought the proceedings to a halt. Everyone was staring at her now, as if she had questioned God in the middle of the sermon. The doctor smiled and tried to hide her offense. "The White Lady requires all her people to be vaccinated every 2 days, especially in the presence of outsiders. So please, your arm." Errol's sudden and gruesome death vividly replayed in Juno's mind. "I'm not her people," she said. The doctor avoided eye contact and held her tongue. She suddenly seemed very tired, unsure whether to argue or cry, as if she might be punished for Juno's refusal. "Please, Miss Radcliffe," said Stella, putting one hand on her shoulder. Juno brushed her hand away. "You expect me to take a mystery injection in this town after watching that boy drop dead not 5 minutes ago?" Juno, she moved past the doctor, right into a giantess in a blue hood and matching armor, who had been lurking in a doorway, growing angrier by the second at Juno's impertinence. Now she grabbed Juno with a gorilla hand and said, "Blaspheme in the temple at your peril." The moment she touched her, Juno's hand sprung up and grabbed her wrist, twisting it into a painful Aikido lock that brought the giantess to her knees, but Juno then planted one hand on her head and shoved her to the floor. She remained prone until Juno was out of sight. For 2 hours, Juno stood in the back of the cathedral, behind a sea of robed cultists with heads bowed in prayer as they sang hymn after a hymn. The figure on the pulpit, leading the chant, was a sight to behold. Tall and full-figured, shrouded in beautiful white silk, her arms spread toward the heaven as she cried out to her congregation. On her head was a frightening skull mask that gave her the appearance of a benevolent grim reaper. The congregation, all shrouded in blue like Juno, did not seem afraid of her. They chanted with her, adoration swimming in their eyes. Her very presence induced trembling awe in many of her followers, driving some of them to tears as they sang to their leader. In Glimmerfell, the people had made cryptic mention of a white witch who ruled Morden like a messiah. After the sermon, dozens of congregation members greeted her with enthusiasm, asking her about the places she had visited outside of Morden. Hating being the center of attention, Juno humored them as best she could without vomiting from anxiety, her guts turning inside out more and more the longer she endured the curious crowds. Eventually, her salvation came in the form of the unusually tall woman in blue whom she had forced into submission at the temple door. Her gaze burned Juno to the touch. "Miss Radcliffe," the woman said, "I'm Gladys, sister of contrition." "How's the arm?" said Juno. The bonfires in her eyes flared out. "The White Lady will see you now." She bulldozed apart through the crowd for Juno, who followed the big woman up several long halls decorated with a perversion of the Midgard emblem, a winged skull putting the Reaper-like White Lady at the center of Midgard's iconography. Priestesses came in and out of the myriad tiny doors lining every hallway. The place was a labyrinth, and without Sister Gladys to guide her, Juno would surely have lost her way. They came to a large ornate door. Sister Gladys's knocks were like cannon blasts. From inside, someone bade them enter. It was the private room of a dictator, overly spacious and lavishly furnished with all the comforts of power. Oak bookshelves were lined with forgotten books of the old world. The chairs and couches were new and comfortable, not the rickety makeshift furniture Juno had seen in Stella's house. The White Lady stood at the crackling fireplace, unmasked, pouring 2 glasses of mead. There was something alarmingly familiar about the true face of the White Lady of Morden. The round cheeks, full lips, and cruel blue eyes that squinted with mean-spirited glee. When Juno heard the woman's musical voice, a chill crept up her spine. "Welcome to the community of Morden, Miss Radcliffe," she said, offering her a glass. "I am Contessa Gore. I believe you knew my mother?" Juno swallowed hard. She accepted the glass with a nod. Contessa laughed musically again. "Please don't be afraid. Mother and I rarely saw eye to eye, and the world is a better place for her passing." She sat on an extravagant couch, gesturing to the opposite couch. "Please, sit. I want to hear why the Butcher Slayer has come to my humble corner of the world." Juno chuckled bitterly at the word humble, taking in another eyeful of the obscene luxury surrounding her. She wondered if Contessa Gull was the only one in Morden who wasn't freezing to death every night. "I'm here on a mission from Glimmerfell," said Juno. "They're suffering from an epidemic of TB. Contessa nodded. "It's been spreading again, so I hear. We are isolated from the rest of the world, but not ignorant of it." Juno cleared her throat. "Then they say you perform miracles of medicine here, and they ask you to come broker a deal for them? Why send a soldier? I happened to be passing through when I learned what was going on there. They're afraid of you. Only the governor's husband was willing to ask for your help on behalf of his people, and I guess I was crazy enough to climb a mountain to deliver the message." A small smile crept across Contessa's generous lips. A familiar story. The people of Morden were sick and starving under their old leadership until the day I sought refuge among them. Before I came here, Morden was a pathetic cluster of frigid huts filled with the miserable dying spiritualists. Juno shifted in her seat. "They still are, from the looks of it, but now they're scared too, and wearing phony smiles. And yet they are content, despite the occasional blasphemer who is struck down by my holy hand. Before me, they lack faith, security, even good health. My healers have given them all of this and more." Contessa watched her closely, fondling her glass. "I suspect you're skeptical of our powers here." Juno looked at her, then at the floor. "I just saw a young man drop dead from nothing in the street." Contessa nodded. "Errol, was it? Poor boy lost his faith and refused my treatment. He chose his path, not me." Juno narrowed her eye. "I got a distinct impression it was done to him. He was begging the priestess to spare his life." Her fingers tightened around the glass. "And the boy was killed by cyanide poisoning. I've seen it before." A condescending smile from Contessa. "Nothing slips by you, does it?" "You're right, of course. The vaccinations I administer at the temple are a form of molecular technology developed by my late mother during Project Einherjar. tiny synthetic cells that dissolve in the bloodstream over time, releasing their contents directly into the circulatory system. Cyanide, for instance, as you said. Juno stood up, ready to leave Morden and never come back, disgust seething from her every pore. Any of your twisted vampire dogs so much as looks in my direction, I'll kill them where they stand. The dictator watched her golden net swirl around in her glass. You got a preliminary vaccination yesterday, Miss Radcliffe, while you were quarantined at Stella's house. It's already far too late to be worried about injections. Contessa looked up and relished the doom in Juno's face. She didn't have to mention that the poison was now coursing through her veins. The dictator drank from her glass, emptying it. You knew this, of course. That's why Matron sent you here, to kill me and procure the advancements I've made in Mother's work. Juno stood as if she were about to pounce on the priestess. I came because I watched too many children die in Glimmerfell. Contessa cut her off. I know who you are, Miss Radcliffe. You're an assassin. Your military record is a laundry list of people killed with extreme prejudice, like my mother. In fact, you've recently made a nasty habit of annihilating everyone who lays a finger on her legacy. All this, and you have the unmitigated nerve to invade my home and feed me a fairy tale about trying to save the poor, sick folk of Glimmerfell? Juno didn't bother arguing with her. The door was already open behind her, and she knew that Sister Gladys and probably several others were standing there, ready to kick her ass up and down the room. How long do I have? Said Juno before they grabbed her and restrained her. Contessa got up and went to refill her glass. The usual 48 hours, unless I decided to send you on an important errand, in which case I shall extend your expiration date. I may have use for you in Jotunheim, retrieving the rest of Mother's Einherjar files. Until your situation changes for the better, you shall spend your final 48 hours contemplating your sins in a pit of woe with the other blasphemers. Do you believe in God, Miss Radcliffe? No. Contessa raised her glass. Pray to her anyway. Mission 4. The Scourge of Morden. Objective: terminate the White Lady Contessa Gall and free the Morden colony from her sadistic cult. And well, there you go. The White Lady of Morden. Spooky fella, Spooky fella. Anyway, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It really has been a while, hasn't it? But well, here we are again, once again, in Golheim, trying to sort out more of these absolute... I can't even describe them. Such fools, such imbeciles, to once again launch an Einherjar operation when the watchful eyes of Radcliffe is upon them. But anyways, we shall just go right in immediately. Like always, Amazon Queen. Okay, well, oh dear me. Oh, dear me. I think I see the gimmick for this or not. Never mind. You know, for a moment there I thought this was going to do the Doom 3 thing. You know how in the Nightmare difficulty, was it? You just get health reduction every second of the game. For a moment there I thought it was going to be the same thing. But well, never mind, it's just no, never mind. Don't forget to save. It really has been a while, so pardon me if I'm getting rusty and, well, missing a few things. Well, I know one thing's for sure though, those guys are not good guys. And you, I think you are not good either. Yeah. You guys are fine now. Stay safe, you lot. I need a yellow car. Again? No. Okay, maybe there's this light. Never mind. I stand corrected. Secrets? No secrets just yet. Thank you. Not exactly a lot of ammo for the moment, so maybe I should use the ballistic knife a bit more. But then again, there could be slight issues if the enemies I'm facing are robotics. Like so indeed. I mean, the Raven is great, the Raven is excellent. And with the sound effect I chose for it, I must say that I actually prefer using it compared to other weapons. But well, there's the problem of, you know, ammunition and all. Thank goodness you guys stink at using, you know, any other weapon that's not lousy shotguns.